Okay, so my voice doesn't project very well most of the time. So if you can't hear me, just like wave me down something. I see some familiar faces. Hi, I'm going to be talking about a really boring subject, which is email. I've been doing it for almost a decade now, so I think I'm a professional. But mostly, a lot of time when we talk about email security, we're talking about bigger organizations, which is what I do every day. I work for RepZip as a customer success engineer. It's just a fancy word of saying I'm a solutions engineer. But most of the time, no one ever covers email security when it comes to creators or small businesses. We're always talking about the big guys like USPS, Spies, like Microsoft, and what their records look like, how to prevent phishing emails from arriving to their inbox or from them sending phishing emails from their domain. I'm not interested in that. I want to make sure that independent creators and businesses, small businesses, that random TCG up the street are fully protected and that their email isn't getting taken advantage of, not just with small cost tools, but also free tools specifically. So it's always the same thing. You send out a newsletter to your 5,000 people that follow you on Instagram, people that subscribe to your Substack, and they tell you, hey, I'm not getting your newsletter anymore. Or better yet, you sent me an email and I don't know why you would send me that. How dare you? So you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know what's happening. And you're like, what do I do about it? I don't want to pay $100 to some monthly service just for email, right? Email is boring. Email is tiny. Anyway, I briefly covered this. I'm going to go into the deep dive. I came from Rackspace just down the street, right? Started in 2018. There's other rackers in here. Hi! I started in email and apps, helping people with their inboxes, learning about SPF, DMARC, DKIM. Moved over to MailDot to do transactional email. MailDot's also in San Antonio, downtown at the Westin Center. And then in 2025, I moved over to Red6. So I like to say I know a thing or two about email. I found something that I'm passionate about, and I just kind of ran for it. So we're going to talk about the front line. A lot of the time when people get spoofing, anything comes into their inbox, into their quarantine or someone else's, everyone's looking at the front line. The cool thing about the front line is it's not real. There's from, and then there is actual from. Then there's the return path. Then there's headers. A lot of complicated ways of saying when you send an email from someone who's authorized or not authorized to send email on your behalf, sometimes it's not entirely who you think it is. For example, let's talk about MailChimp. MailChimp sends newsletters to all sorts of people. You sign up for a free trial. You send email from your cool domain called dogsaregreat.com. They send email on your behalf, and then that email lands in spam. Why does it land in spam when this brown was dogsreallycool.com? It's because it was actually being sent from MailChimp. In my example here, I put an evil example of a bad actor sending a message, trying to impersonate you. Why does it go through? It shouldn't go through. I don't want this. We're going to talk about it. So, I literally just covered it. But without getting ahead of myself, you send a message. It goes through the MTA. It goes through all the email gateway servers. It either lands in your inbox, in your spam, or it gets rejected, depending on the security in place. For example, you hit send on your inbox, it goes to Gmail, Gmail reads it. As of 2023, if you don't have a DMARC record on your DNS, Gmail's going to reject it. If you send to Yahoo, Yahoo's going to reject it. AOL, same thing. Microsoft, same thing. As of 2023, if you don't have a DMARC record in place and you are sending any amount of emails from your private domain, dogsreallycool.com, it's probably going to go to spam or reject it. So what do? We implement something called DMARC. DMARC is this really simple DNS record that goes in place that basically says, hey, if someone is sending on my behalf, here's what you do with it. And also send me an email with a full XML report saying who sent on my behalf, who tried to send impersonating as me. And I say impersonating as a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Sometimes they're legitimate impersonations that you want, like that MailChimp campaign, right? If you want every single person in the Christmas season to get your Christmas newsletter, you probably want to use someone who's reliable and knows a little bit more about email than you do. You want to add them to your DMARC record. DMARC is made of two different parts, SPF and DKIM. SPF is simply someone who's authorized to send email on your behalf, those IPs that they send that email from, and it's usually a really pretty record that'll be like sps.reallycooldomain.com. DKIM is a little cooler. DKIM is a key that goes into every single message that's just cryptographically signed that says, hey, if this message changes at any point during the entire email pathway, reject it. It's not actually neat. There's a public key and a private key. It's really cool. It's a lot safer than SCS. In my opinion, I don't like SCS. I think everything should be DKIM forward. But even though the year is 2026, we still sometimes like to use technology from the 1980s. So, SKF. I just talked about how much I didn't like it, and now I'm going to tell you exactly why. So, let's say that you are using the STI records from Microsoft. You take that include and you put a CNAME. That CNAME links to a bunch of IPs. Someone signs up for Microsoft 365. They make a tenant on a 30-day trial, and because you have that SPF record from Microsoft, sending from the US servers, suddenly someone can sign up for a tenant and hope they land on the same servers, and now they can send on your behalf because that SPF record is there. It helps approve, like say, hey, Microsoft is authorized to send on my behalf, but it doesn't fully protect you. The other really lame thing about SCF is that it has a 10 DNS lookup limit. If you get past that 10 DNS lookup limit, your SCF record just stops working. I know of some transactional email senders, without mentioning any names, that simply by using them, your lookup limit rates to 5. So if you're sending transactional email for your Christmas campaign from one vendor, then you're sending your daily email from another vendor, suddenly your lookups hit 10 really, really, really fast, even if you're just a small business or a private creator. What do you do in that case? Now you have to start messing with macros and getting really creative about it. So, DKIM. I'm a really big fan of DKIM. You use a cryptographic signature. It proves that the message wasn't altered anywhere in transit, and it survives mail can keys. It survives forwardings. It survives mailing lists. In Gmail, it has something called ARF. So whenever you send a message to someone, they take it and it gets forwarded to someone else, that SPF record actually gets dropped because you mess with the headers. Anytime you mess with email headers, weird things happen. The DKIM record is the only thing that survives, and that's what keeps you safe. So when that message gets forwarded to its final destination, as long as nothing was touched, that DKIM record is going to stay in place, and you'll be able to say, yes, this is authenticated. No matter who it got forwarded to, it's still legitimate. So it's just saying what it actually catches when it's up to catch. I'm not going to read for you, but I am going to rant for you. The thing about DKIM is, how to explain it? In the 1980s, DKIM keys were itty-bitty. Then they doubled up, and they doubled up again. In 2013, all DKIM keys were, in order to be correctly authorized, were 1024 keys. As of 2026, now they should be 2048. And by 2030, that's going to change again. So the only downside of DKIMs is a lot of the times when I work with DKIM keys, I'm finding a lot of antiquated DKIM keys. So you want to keep those rotated. And now we are talking about actual alignment. So I'm going to make a reference that may not land with some people, may land with other people. I call DMARC a pregnancy test. You can have a false negative, but you can't have false positive. So it works with your SPF or ZTIM. DMARC will check for either or, and if one of them exists, it'll let it pass through. That's funky because you can change the settings to be a little more specific. But in general, DMARC is looking for either an SPF record that says, hey, this vendor is allowed to send on my behalf, or a DKIM record that says, yes, this vendor is allowed to send on my behalf, and also here is this really cool private key that proves that they are. When either of these happen, it passes alignment, and then the DMARC record goes and checks the next section, which says, if it does pass, what do I do with it? If it doesn't pass, what do I do with it? If the policy is set to none, which a lot of the time it is, something like 98% of the people who have DMARC implemented only have their key policies set to none, absolutely nothing happens. You get a cool recording your email in XML, and the email still goes through someone's inbox. That reallycooldogs.com domain that you just sent the cool Christmas campaign to, it's still going to go to their inbox. The bad actor that's trying to get in and get some phishing on your behalf, it's still going to go to their inbox. If that policy is set to quarantine and a bad actor tries to spend on behalf of your reallycooldogs.com, it's going to go to spam if there is no SPF or DKIM alignment. If it's set to reject, it simply bounces. Bouncing is really cool because the more a message bounces when it's not authenticated, the more likely it is that that IP that it was sent from is going to get bad reputation. And within 30 to 60 days, you'll no longer have those phishing or spoofing impersonation issues because usually bad actors don't want to blow their domains on someone who's already making them bounce. They want to save that for someone who's not as secure. So my advice to you is if you are using a DMARC record, try to get to reject as quickly and safely as possible. Okay, so one of the arguments I get is, I set up my DMARC record in 2023 and it still works. So, it works, but it doesn't. Every time you switch ESPs, let's say you're going from MailChimp to MailJet. When you make that transition, your records are going to change. Let's say that Crumble Cookie goes out of business. Someone buys Crumble Cookie and then tries to send it to them. You can just buy that domain and start sending on behalf of them. Now, every single person who had that on their SPF record, they're suddenly vulnerable. So you do want to check it at least once a year. When a DKIM selector is retired, that really cool key I talked about earlier, you no longer have access to it. It's no longer valid. Like I mentioned, in 2030, 2048 keys are probably going to be put out of business for the next best thing. If the SPF record is past its 10 lookups, like I mentioned earlier, the entire SPF record stops working. So it's very easy to just go, hey, marketing, or hey, me, I'm my own marketing and my everything. My membership with this transactional domain right now, I'm going to go try this new vendor and their 60-day free trial, add their lookup to the SPF record like their instructions state, but you never do actual DNS maintenance. Suddenly your lookups go past 10 and your entire SPF record stops working. And we already talked about people, don't say it, people stuff. So, I really like the idea of making sure that everyone has access to safe ways to send email for free. So a lot of the times, all these newsletter platforms, mailboxes, transactional emails, sites, contact forms, your fast machine in your bedroom that should probably be put out to pasture but is still working. All of these are going to send email in their own different way. And those are going to add up to more lookups and more ways that you can mess up your DNS record, right? So instead, we're going to use DKIM. This is just kind of showing all the different vendors that has their own SPF and DKIM records, things that very quickly. So here's another example of where SPF passes, but it doesn't really. Let's say that you are sending a message through hostmail.channel. When you send that message, it passes for that vendor, but it doesn't pass for dogblog.com. Dogblog.com is you. Why doesn't it pass? Because even though it's authenticated for the vendor, it's not authenticated for you specifically. So you would think that it passes because you added that SPF record, so the SPF record is for the vendor, not for you. That's why I always encourage using a DKIM key. DKIM key is specific to you and your domain, and that's always going to pass. It's always going to land in the inbox. It's not going to get into people's quarantine as long as the message contents are valid. We're not talking about casinos or pharmaceuticals or anything like that. That's a whole different deliverability. It's saying if you are in that, go talk to me afterward. I have tips for you. But for the sake of this, if your blog is on dogs and you have a DKIM key, it should land on people's inboxes. So, all this to say, how do I know if someone is currently spooking me right now? You publish a DMARC record. Before you even get into the specifics of DKIM and DMARC, or SEO and DKIM, put a DMARC record on your DNS. That cool blog that you have, that domain, and add a TXT record, leave it blank, just make sure that you have reporting come through. And within 24 hours, you're going to find out exactly who is sending on behalf of your domain, whether it's authenticated or not. What's really cool is that a lot of the time, a lot of people are. There are people who go and search for all sorts of domains, see who has MX records, and if they have MX records, those bad actors are going to go and try to send and take advantage of those really clean sending IP. So you look up your record, you add your record, you check it. What are some cool tools that you can use that are completely free? One, MX Toolbox. You can use MX Toolbox, which has SKS, CKIM, and DMARC records completely for free. Super easy to Google. You can use RedSys Investigate tool. Easy DMARC also has a lookup. So you can actually check your SKS limits. See if you're at that 10. If you need to add a macro, figure out how to make a macro and reduce that below 10. You can send a real message and see what's going on with your headers, see what's going on with your SKS, CKIM, or DMARC records. There are 3 different tools from Learn DMARC, Mail Tester, and About My. They all give you an analysis of what your message headers look like. So they're really, really good tools. And then your entire domain posture. And then there's Breadtest Radar, Internet.nl, and Port75 Reflector. They're all going to help you figure out what your domain posture looks like and what changes you can make afterwards. So you set up your record, and now what? You want to monitor it. Like I said, things change all the time. And then you're like, but I don't have time to monitor it. Do it once a year. Do it over the Christmas break. You don't have to touch it very often if you're an independent creator. But here's some really cool tools that you can do for that manual change. Use Plusmart, use Stalino, use Cloudflare. If you already are using Cloudflare, a lot of really free tools come with it. You can self-post if you don't like your information being available to other organizations. You can use Parse DMARC, which is super cool. You use this for fun. It's open source. It's entirely free. You don't need to rely on anyone else. And then there are 3 different tools that are free, but only for personal use or very, very small businesses. That's going to be DMARCian's tools, Indie DMARC, Power DMARC, and their free tiers. It's a really great way to play around and figure out how to make your email secure and then grow it and expand it. The only caveat is it is free and a lot of them are for only personal use. So if you ever grow out of it, just remember to switch over because a lot of things will stop working. So what do we do now? Let's say today you spent some time going to GoDaddy, adding a TXT record for DMARC. And then next week, you add your reporting, check your SDF records. In a month, you check your limits, figure out what you need to fix, move from P equals none to P quarantine to reject. Suddenly, bad actors aren't allowed to send on your behalf. You can add MTA STS, which is a really cool way of encrypting the actual email context. We'll dig deep into that, but if you're interested in that, talk to me afterwards. It's nice. And then ongoing, check. It says quarterly. I think yearly is fine. I originally thought quarterly. That's just a little too much. But once a year, check your email, check your DNS records, figure out what you have to delete, what's gone out of business, and what you need to be added. Then there's always Vimy. So Vimy is a logo that's a lot like the Instagram blue check mark, where you pay someone close to $1,000 to get a verified certificate that says, hey, I'm who I say I am. And here's a little checkbox to prove it. Instead of the cute picture that shows up every time you send a message, that little circle, it is the actual logo. So if you have a business, you have a trademark, or you don't have any trademark, you can get a VMC or a CMC. Obviously, that's not for everyone. That's not for independent creators. But if you have a small business or an expanding business, it's definitely something to look into. It's a fairly easy process. The only thing is that you need to get reject in order to even qualify for it. Okay, all this to say, this is a DMARC record. You have P equals none, you have your RGA, which is your analytics and what email it goes to, and then your percentage. Don't worry about the little letters, just kind of what comes along with it, saying that, hey, make sure everything's strict and that you're not using your relax align and it ignores things. So another thing I want to mention is DMARC 2.0 got launched in May, and along with that, the percentage went away. So when people are implementing DMARC, a lot of the questions I get asked is, hey, can I only do 50% quarantine? I only want 50% of the messages that aren't aligned correctly to go to spam. That's no longer going to be a thing in the future. So with DMARC 2.0, as that gets implemented, it's currently not available for many ESPs. Just something to keep in mind, you won't be able to do percentages anymore. But a really cool feature that does come with DMARC 2.0 is stopping subdomains that don't exist from being spoofed or being sent on your behalf. What I mean by that is .block.com uses mail. And transaction. Those are actual subdomains. But what about APC. Or I'm a bad actor. Those are subdomains that don't exist. But if you are not restricting your DMARC record to send those and bounce those messages, send it to reject, then bad actors are just going through. Your main domain can be fully protected, but subdomains and fake subdomains remain unprotected. That's something that's changing with DMARC 2.0. So really, really exciting for me. So just such again, 5 minutes that we need to retire. The idea of SPF alone protects me. SPF is in the 1980s. I know a lot of people are also from the 1980s, but let's leave the 80s in the 80s and move on to better methods of protection. I have DMARC, so I'm safe. Kind of. A lot of the time when you check your DMARC record, P is going to point to none, which means absolutely nothing is happening when a bad actor impersonates you. I originally pulled a report of all of the sponsors and organizations that were here at this event, and let me just say that a very large percentage were at P equals none. I'm not going to put anyone in shade, but So the other thing is, look for your SPF include. Again, you don't want to get past that 10 lookup limit because the entire SPF record fails and then no one will authenticate as is sent on your behalf. And DKIM means my email is encrypted. While DKIM is secure and it is added to every single message you send from that domain, it does not mean that the actual contents of the mail are protected. That's what MCISTS is for. And then the set it and forget it policy. Like I said, do it over Christmas break. Every time you go on holiday, feel like it's time to check my boring email. So what do you get out of it? Your messages reach the inbox. You set DMARC up. It's set up correctly, all green. You no longer have to worry about bad actors trying to impersonate you, taking your dog blog and trying to send casino ads through it. You can rest EV. It's reaching all 5,000 of your followers. No one's phishing in your name, and you actually know what's going on with your domain exactly from those reports. And that's it, guys. Thanks for staying here. You can find me at iris.omgll. That's also my email, iris.omgll. If you have any questions, I'll be around. Thank you.